Hello all, welcome back to our course on digital accessibility, and today we will try to dive a little bit deeper into mobile accessibility and the related aspects. So, mobile accessibility in India is both a legal mandate and an ethical imperative. So, we have to ensure that digital inclusion for the country's large population of people with disability is there. And there are several legal mandates which we will also talk about in the upcoming slides around mandates related to mobile accessibility, which also have to be followed. And it has a significant legal, economic and social importance, and which is of course driven by the recent court judgments and national legislations. So, we have also discussed the legal and the economic aspects related to accessibility in general, not just pertaining to mobile accessibility, but when we say any digital product, largely we are also talking about mobile as well as web based products. So, all of the legal aspects and all of the economic aspects that we have discussed in one of the previous sessions do very much apply to mobile accessibility and application related accessibility as well. So, just to get an understanding of the various facets which influence mobile accessibility and why it is important in a country like India particularly. So, first and foremost is that it is now a part of the fundamental right, the right to life and liberty, which is the fundamental right of all citizens. Now mandates around access to information and digital accessibility fall under right to life. So, as companies, as engineers, as designers, we have to ensure that all our applications right from the beginning, whenever we are creating those applications, are accessible to widest possible audience base, not just just only for persons with disabilities, but also to persons who are aging, and there is a large aging population in the country, not just in India, but globally as well. In countries like Japan and the European Union, aging has become one of the major access related barriers. So, we have to ensure that as well, and in order to include more and more geriatric population of our country in the digital ecosystem, we have to ensure accessibility of all our products and platforms, particularly for them as well. In one of the following follow-up sessions, we will discuss the special use case of aging population, and we will also discuss the special use case of persons who are blind. And because these are two very big chunks, both in terms of the numbers, but also in terms of the variety of issues and the barriers that they face. So, we will have a special session on each of those difficulties and barriers. But to just take in essence related to the fundamental rights, I think we have discussed it several times in all of these slides, and now we have to ensure that it's not just a part or matter of design or policy or just the experience itself. It's also part of the legal mandate, and it is thus very important to consider. Then we have also discussed that mobile accessibility also ensures market expansion, because we are able to cater to a wider customer base, and hence that uptick really also reflects in the economic and the profitability aspects of your product and the company. Ensuring mobile accessibility allows businesses to reach a larger and underserved market segment, which is largely untapped, particularly in India, and accessibility gaps when filled. So, those applications lead to increased user retention, increased trust, and increased customer loyalty, and thus greater profitability. So, I think this is also a very important aspect. Then of course comes the legal and ethical responsibility. Beyond the legal compliance, making digital platforms inclusive also reflects the corporate social responsibility. CSR is no longer just supporting these initiatives with a financial support. It's also a matter of compliance within the company, within their own ecosystems, within their own hiring policies, within their own creation and innovation policies, and their commitment to equality itself, which will eventually reflect in more inclusive product design, definitely. So then of course I think we have discussed it earlier as well, that most accessibility features such as navigation, clearer navigation, keyboard accessibility, language alternatives, and they just don't remove the accessibility barriers for people with special needs, but also enhances user experience for the so-called general or able or our most wider audience base, right, or so-called normal user. So and including those with people with temporary or situational impairments. So I think this part we have discussed in several sessions at length. You can maybe go back and refer to those sessions to get a deeper picture. Of course, then another important aspect is improved brand image, because the company is not just producing or developing compliant applications or platforms. They are also prioritizing inclusivity within the company. That builds company's reputation, builds trust within the customers and potential partners who value socially conscious businesses. And this has become a very important aspect when it comes to VC funding for startups, etc. How socially aware you are of the socio-economic fabric of the customers you are going to serve, or you are just influenced by other parts of the world and just making a replica of it for India or something like that. So this social awareness and social consciousness of businesses is something which is a key component when it comes to securing big VC funds. So particularly for startups, I think this aspect becomes even more relevant and important. Now let us talk about particularly compliance related aspects in India, and mostly related to mobile access. So the legal framework for mobile accessibility in India is primarily based on the RPWD, or the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016, and subsequent judicial and regulatory actions. So the RPWD Act of 2016, this is like a cornerstone legislation mandating that all public and private sector service providers make their services, including digital platforms and mobile applications, accessible to persons with disabilities. Non-compliance can lead to penalties ranging from 10,000 to 5 lakh, and this is probably going to increase in the upcoming years, because the government is hell-bent on enforcing these mandates. Supreme Court mandate, recently there was a landmark judgment in April of 2025, where the Supreme Court has reinforced the RPWD Act, ordering the government to establish mandatory enforceable accessibility standards, requiring immediate action from various sectors like banking and finance. And this particularly has also reflected in recent SEBI mandate, which came in October of 2025, where all financial and banking platforms have to comply to web and mobile accessibility compliance benchmarks. So, while the RPWD Act does not directly cite the international standards, they cannot do that because they are in Indian law, but there is a Indian alternative called GIGW, and the rules and the subsequent directives align with them. So, they have issued a list of guidelines of themselves which are directly borrowed from the WCAG guidelines. The key standards include web accessibility, web content accessibility guidelines, or the WCAG. You may think that why we are talking about web content accessibility guidelines again, because largely the digital interfaces most of the time the principles remain the same when you are even designing for a mobile based interface, or you are designing for a wider window kind of a web based interface. So largely, and we are all aware that nowadays we also open a lot of websites on the mobile, and a lot of applications are actually web based applications which are running on your mobile phone. So only the responsiveness or the design orientation, layouting, as all of those factors change when it comes to a smaller interface, which is like a handheld mobile interface. So, but then these are internationally recognized technical standards that all entities, public and private, are expected to follow, particularly level AA conformance. So, in one of the previous sessions where we have dived deeper into the WCAG guidelines, we have spoken at length about the level A, level AA, level AAA compliance standards and what is the meaning of that. You can go back to your those sessions, or you can jump to the WCAG resource web page, and you can see the list of criterions that are falling into AA. AA level compliance implicitly means that it is also AA level compliant. So, A and A, when it's complete, then only you can move to AA, and once it is complete, then only you can move to AAA. So, AA means that all AA and A level criteria are fulfilled in your apps and your web pages. Then there is also, as I mentioned, there is something called a GIGW guidelines for Indian government websites 3.0. These set the standards for governments, digital platforms, and incorporate many accessibility features which again align with the WCAG. So, the WCAG and the acquaintance with WCAG guidelines is something which is going to help you in attaining knowledge and expertise related to digital accessibility, be it web, be it mobile. So, make sure that you go through that again and again in order to develop your knowledge base and expertise. So, then there is also IS 7802, Indian Standards on Accessibility Requirements for Information and Communication Technology, or ICT products and services, notified by the Bureau of Indian Standards, or BIS. You, I'm sure, might have heard about BIS, and we have also discussed this in one of the previous sessions where we spoke about the BIS standards. The same standards also extend to mobile accessibility, and there are linked resources in that session as well, and you can again go and search for these keywords, and you will be able to find the related web pages, or you can go back to our session on compliance and WCAG, and you will get all of these resources linked in those session slides as well. So, in order to make sure that the enforcement action is done, a Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disability has taken action against non-compliant establishments, imposing fines and demanding accessibility audits, signaling a shift from self-regulation to active enforcement. I think this is the most important part. So long there were these laws till 2016, and the law stated, the act stated that it should be compliant, you have to comply with the guidelines and all of this. But sadly, people were not enforcing those compliance criterion on their products. So now it is no longer a self-regulation, but it is active enforcement of the law by the government itself, and there's a chief commissioner who can impose fines or signal accessibility audits that need to be done in order to ensure the enforcement of mandates around accessibility. Key accessibility practices for mobile apps. Again, the compliance involves integrating accessibility from the start of the design, the development process, and again follow the POUR principles, the perceivable, operable, understandable and robust principles. The WCAG guidelines, as we have discussed in one of the previous sessions, are also divided as per these headings themselves. They are segregated amongst themselves, like in this headings itself, and we have also at length discussed about what is the meaning of perceivable, so providing text alternative, so making sure that your information, which is whatever is there on your application, is perceivable by a variety of users despite their ability barriers, right. So here we talk about multimodal output interfaces, output feedback systems, multimodal interactions, multimodal ways of representing the information, and then also basic things like text alternatives for the images, captioning for videos, or sufficient contrast and all of those. Then second is ensuring operabilities, ensuring functionality, engagement with your application either through keyboard or providing big enough buttons, touch targets to offer alternatives to complex gestures. That means that operability basically, here we are talking about multimodal output devices. Here we are talking about multimodal input devices basically. So there should be multiple ways of interacting with the system, and even those ways have to offer, if it's like a haptic or a touch based system, then the targets have to be of a certain size, the text has to be a certain size, the links should not be empty, all of those things, right. Then understandability complies with, we have also again discussed this as at length. You can go back to the POUR principles session and maybe get a deeper understanding of all of these principles. Here we are just kind of summarizing it for the benefit of the topic. Use simpler languages, consistent layouts or descriptive labels, provide clearer error messages. So understandability relates to the semantic processing or the semantic aspect of your application. Robustness is compatibility with a wider range of assistive technologies, compatibility with different kinds of platforms or OS, like an Apple versus an Android, and all of those aspects. Then regular testing with automated tools and real users with disabilities is crucial to identifying and addressing accessibility barriers effectively. So these are this is a basic summary of key practices for mobile apps. to ensure accessibility. We will talk about some of the commonly occurring issues, particularly in mobile access. So, poor contrast is something which keeps popping up again and again, because somehow as designers or as engineers we are placing less value on it in terms of access, and or many a times compromise the contrast just for the aesthetic quality of it. So, we have to ensure that that does not happen. Insufficient touch target size, so buttons cannot be very small because otherwise it becomes very difficult for users to accurately tap, particularly for users with motor impairments. Lack of alt text, so if there are images or icons but there is no alt text, then the screen readers or such assistive technologies, or what we call talkback in a mobile phone, is not able to speak what is there on the image and image description, then it is inaccessible to persons who are visually impaired or who have low vision. Unresponsive text resizing, so apps for some reason are not able to handle user preferences for larger text. So, even if on my phone the Android OS allows having larger text, the main interface or navigation pages may have larger text, but as soon as I jump into an app, my text preference gets lost. So, this is like a code level issue, right? So, when you are developing your application, make sure that it complies with aligns with user preferences which are already there present on the mobile phone itself, in the OS settings. Inconsistent focus order, so many times screen readers or keyboard users cannot navigate through a content in a logical or a predictable sequence, because the background architecture is not predictable or a logical sequence. Because many times we've seen that on an app, like for example you think about a Zomato app or a Uber app, there is also unnecessary images or ads sometimes which if they come in between a sequential readout of the text, then it is haphazard and loses the connection between the previous and the next information. So, the predictable sequence gets disturbed. So, for this I think there is also a section in the mobile accessibility guidelines, and also in one of the books which I will just refer you to, it's called Mobile Accessibility Rituals. There is also a chapter on that where it is where the author talks about having two information architectures. So, where there is one architecture which is accessible by the screen reader, and there is one architecture which is there accessible by the front end or the visual interface user, because many a times the logic may be different for both of them. Non-keyboard accessible controls, most of the times when the apps are designed for mobile use, we tend to skip the fact that maybe some of the users would be using a keyboard or interacting it. So, this again falls into the operability category, and we have to ensure that so custom controls or menus, etc. Are also accessible using a variety of input devices like a keyboard or a screen reader. Inaccessible media like videos particularly, or audio only content, if they don't have transcripts, then they become inaccessible to people who are visually impaired or hearing impaired. So, again here are some tips for mobile interfaces. use proper color contrast, adhere to the WCAG recommendation of at least 4:5:1, 4.5:1 for normal text and 3:1 for large text. Size touch targets appropriately. Make sure your buttons are decent size. There's enough space between two closely placed buttons. The colors indicate what they are trying to do, what the action is for. Use the concept of affordances in order to create a good call to action. You can refer to the session on affordances in order to get an idea about what is the meaning of that. That can be really useful for this point actually. So you can refer to affordances. Then provide alt text to images and other non-text contents like videos. Make sure that you enable zoom and text resizing because this, as we mentioned earlier, make sure that the users can pinch to zoom and that text resizes without breaking the layout. Right? The app should respect the device's dynamic type settings. So apps should take information from the device's dynamic type settings, and if the user has already put preferences about their preferred font size and type related font type, then it should respect that. Ensure logical focus order. Test the navigation with the keyboard or screen reader to confirm a logical and consistent flow through the app's content. I think this is really important because it is like testing from the lens of a person with vision impairment. Then of course we're not negating actual user testing, but this is something that you can also do just to see whether the sequence is coming out as a logical sequence or not, because screen readers are a sequential output device. The design for different types of inputs ensure that functionality is available via both touch and non-touch methods, so like keyboard alternatives, etc. for gestures. Include captions and transcript. Provide captions for videos, for audio content. Optimize data entry. So use tools like drop down and check boxes and radio buttons instead of requiring to type everything in long text. So, and allow for autofill wherever possible. So all of these settings are there, right? I mean, if I have already entered some like longer information like email addresses or phone numbers or home address, postal address, and it is there present on my device, the app should allow for autofill and garner data from the device wherever possible. Test with assistive technologies like TalkBack or VoiceOver in iOS, TalkBack in Android, and test features like switch access to experience the app from a user's perspective. So switch access feature is something which you can explore on your phone device. Incorporate user testing. Include people with disabilities in your testing to identify and fix real world problems and accessibility barriers. This is something which no process can negate. Now let us try to see whether WCAG talks about mobile accessibility, and they have a decent list of resources. So I have linked this. So this is called, this page is mobile accessibility at W3C, and this also covers a good amount of detail, and you can go through this page. Maybe we'll take up a few aspects of it. So W3C provides specific guidance on mobile accessibility. you can click here and see this is again a series of success criteria and all of those. These are the editors. So right now it is a draft document, but still you can see that there is a lot of information available. So success criteria 1.1.1, non-text content. Again, here you can expand and read whatever they are talking about, CAPTCHA, mobile platform, sensory, all of those. So, and particularly read about how and where your interface can fail the criteria, right? So, that is the most important aspect. So, all of these criteria are there and you can go and read. So, alternative text can be provided directly in the view. So, yeah, I mean all of these criteria are there and you can go through, and use of color, orientation, sensory characteristics, meaningful sequences, resize of text, all of these criteria are present, and it customizability, essential. It also has all of these categories like to describe how much is essential and how much you have to ensure and how much is okay to customize. So, then it's also telling you about WCAG to ICT. So, applying the success criterion images of text to non-web documents and software. So, there can be images which contain text. So, then the text becomes inaccessible to a talkback algorithm or a screen reader. So, you have to ensure that that does not happen. Contrast. So, all of these like keyboard, no keyboard trap. So, all of those aspects are so, and you can also read the GitHub connections which are there. So, here note in work in progress, read issue number. So, they have automatically linked useful resources under each criteria. So, these documents and these resources themselves are very comprehensive and very rich. So, when you are creating your application, referring to these can be really helpful. Multiple ways, focus order. So, I am just browsing through it right now. You can use the document as per your requirement. Authentication, this is something which is there in a lot of banking websites, banking apps and all of those things. So, how to do it, how to incorporate accessible ways of authentication. So, like cognitive function test, which is like remembering a password or solving a puzzle. Alternative mechanism is available to assist the user in completing the cognitive test. Object recognition, the cognitive test is to recognize objects. I'm sure you might have seen where you get a matrix of images and you have to identify which ones have a cat in it or something like that. So all of those things, identify non-text content the user provided to a website or something. So all of those things are there, which is very much relevant. And please note that this document itself is like a draft note, but still it is quite rich and you can refer to it easily. Then there is also this document, which is how WCAG 2.0 and other guidelines apply to mobile. So, mobile accessibility considerations primarily related to principle 1, which is perceivability. So, small screen size, most common characteristics of a mobile device. We can take it up in another session again and talk about all of these aspects in detail. Some of it we have already spoken about in different sessions, and it also talks about which criteria falls under which level of AAA. You can go through this. Contrast is AA, contrast enhance is AAA, resizing of text, all of these are there, and it is again a very detailed document, and you can go through this resource as well. It is quite usable. So, I think this page itself is quite usable, and you can go through this at your own convenience and as per your requirement. So, to summarize, in today's session we spoke about the importance of mobile accessibility, the key principles that govern accessibility compliance, some of the commonly occurring issues, some tips to ensure mobile accessibility, and we also saw a very rich resource, which is the W3C mobile accessibility guide, and this is also a very good book, which is called Mobile Accessibility Rituals, which talks about particularly accessibility related tips and how to fix those problems and issues, particularly for mobile application development. So, thank you for staying with us in this session. Look forward to meeting you in the next session.